All right, thank you everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're very excited on a Friday morning, early afternoon in England to talk to Lloyd Skinner about some excellence in AI impacting PMOs, project and portfolio management. So the purpose of this meeting today to exchange and give back to our community is to talk about AI implications in a positive way, the impacts on how it can support PMOs, and then some of the constraints where AI is today in terms of the human element and creativity. So with that said, we welcomely embrace Mr. Lloyd Skinner, an expert in the AI field across the world. So Lloyd, if you can introduce yourself to the community, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Thanks, and thanks for having me, David Omar. Great to get to speak to you. So yeah, I'm Lloyd Skinner. I'm the CEO of a company called GreyFly.ai. My background actually is it all started for me around project planning. So I was absolutely obsessed with Gantt charts and PERT charts and all of that great stuff. So as soon as I finished my university end of things, I got myself a job as a project scheduler. And then over time, that developed into more program planning. And before I knew it, I was then running what was called the project office or the project support office, which now is commonly known the PMO. So, you can tell it was a little while ago. And then what happened then was it started getting a bit blurred between supporting projects and actually being responsible for the delivery of projects. So for my sins working at the BBC, I was responsible for some of their multi-million, multi-year transformation programs that had building at the heart, and I was the overall person on point. And then some 7 years ago, there was a pivotal moment. I mentioned I was at university. I was at a university called London School of Economics, LSE, where I studied information systems. And I did a master's there, and I went on the 25-year postmaster's anniversary and basically got chatting with somebody about the technology that we'd been taught hadn't at that time been applied to project management. And out of the back of that, that's where GreyFly was born. So over the last 7 years, we've been researching, developing products around how do you apply AI to project management, AI to PMOs. Quickly, the flagship product we have is something called Intelligent Project Prediction. It predicts the most likely outcomes of projects. It says why that's the most likely outcome and how, if your project is at risk, you can bring it back on track as well. We're award winning. We've got a various set of global enterprise clients as well. So thank you very much for having me, David.
Great, great. Thank you for that, Lloyd. Omar, do you want to give a quick intro on yourself?
Thank you, David. My name is Omar Abbas. I work as a senior manager for PwC Consulting in Saudi Arabia, and my line of service has lots to do with project management, PMO setup operations, and strategy operations. And currently, given the implications and advances of AI, this is the big next topic that we're looking into how to integrate this with our regular operations in order to add value to our clients.
Great, thank you. So we're getting to the next part of our agenda, Lloyd. What do you think some of the benefits are in AI today, where it's currently at with all its advancements, and how it can positively impact PMLs, portfolio management, and project managers?
Yeah, and first of all, I'd start with that, David, to say there's a lot of snake oil. There's a lot of promise about what could be the benefits. Generally speaking, the way that I like to think about the potential benefit is from an efficiency point of view and an effectiveness point of view. In other words, doing things right versus doing the right things. So if I just unpack doing things right, that typically is associated with doing more than we currently do with the same set of resources. So in there you might have automation, you may have document creation, you may even have recording of meetings. Then there's a whole heap of stuff there around efficiencies, if you like. I think The other side, as I said, doing the right things is more about AI products supporting decision making and direction setting, if you like. And you know, somewhere in the middle there, you know, perhaps there's unearthing or surfacing knowledge as well, which is, you know, we know that there's lots of project documentation. So summarizing that and bringing that to the fore, as it were. So you know, I think for me, there's a couple of things there. You know, if you purely take an efficiency dimension to the application of AI in project management, that's great. But if I'm running towards a fire, I'm just going to get to the fire quicker. You know, so what I want to do is make sure that I'm running in the right direction in the first place. So for me, it's about getting a combination of both efficiency and effectiveness and bringing that together. And you know, I honestly think there's such a potential here to help us get on the front foot so that we make the right decisions as early as possible in the life cycle, even pre-project as well. And that's got to be a great thing, but then all the way through the life cycle and beyond as well.
Great. Is there a specific use case example you can give? Not necessarily get into the tools yet, but you know, how AI
Yeah.
specifically helped these paradigms?
Yeah, of course. So I think, you know, in my world, the starting tool is all around prediction. So predicting the most likely outcome of a project, maybe comparing that to what the project manager is reporting if you're talking about a live project, and, you know, obviously the variance between the two and highlighting that and perhaps some actions that you could do to bring a project back on track. Same point, but actually you can apply that to projects not yet started as well. You know, traditionally we get a team together and we get all of those brains together and we say this is the project plan and it's going to cost this much and it's going to need these resources, etc. Well, actually, perhaps you can fast track that process with the use of AI tools as well. So you know, you've got that prediction side. I think on the other side is you know, again, I'm quite excited about this, but things like, well, knowing which most appropriate risks are to do with a project as early as possible, and not just the statement of the risk, but also how did you mitigate it? And you know, all of that can be a blend of historical knowledge and blending in best practice as well. So I think those are the sort of ones that people do think about straight away. But I must tell you, David, I was speaking to a client the other day when I started this process, and you know, talking about what use cases, and they told me they'd come up with 172 different use cases, David. So you know, I'll park it there in terms of how do you move forward for 1 second, but there's no end of potential here.
Wow, amazing. Good stuff. So, what tools have you? So, Lloyd, what tools have you seen in the industry, AI specific, that can help PMOs or project managers? Any specific ones you comfortable calling out?
Yeah, I'll call out a couple. I think what I would say first of all is that, you know, AI is so ubiquitous these days. I mean, everything is AI, isn't it? You know, my child's handheld computer is AI, and the point about AI for me is it knows no geographical boundaries and also no functional boundaries. Therefore, there's not a definition of exactly, you know, what is or isn't AI. It's almost, you know, it's replaced the word for computer or replaced the word of technology, as it were. In terms of tools, just still sticking to that efficiency and effectiveness side, I think on the efficiency side, you know, you end up with two sets of tools primarily, which is Gen AI end of things, and then at the front of that, the natural language processing or NLP. So just unearthing that a little bit more. You know, the NLP side, typically is about how you interrogate data. So again, we mentioned earlier about how you surface data, how you may remove contradictions in that data. And in there, we can't get away from the likes of Copilot and ChatGPT. On the Gen AIs, and sorry, actually, just before I move on to the Gen AI side a little bit more, what I would say about those products, I think what's really interesting is from me, you've got the big tech players who are pushing their own products in that space and working out exactly how to be the best products on the marketplace. But and I'm sure we'll come on to this in a second, that gives enterprises a bit of a shiver down their back when you talk about security and all of these type of and efficacy and all of these types of points. So what we then are seeing is a sort of demand of companies setting up their own internal products, which may be trained by a large language model at a moment in time, or very tied down, as it were. What they also mean is because Gen AI type tools are so accessible to people, is you've got this whole plethora of the PM assistant popping up left, right, and centre. I mean, this week there's probably another half a dozen that have come to the market, and and us humans are an entrepreneurial bunch, so there's plenty coming. So in there, I think probably the biggest one is PMI's Infinity product that I've seen, and really pushing hard on that as well. But
Yep.
there are other products, both UK and internationally, and I'm sure, by the end of this Friday afternoon, there'll probably be another product on the marketplace as well. The other side is that Gen AI side, and like I said earlier about document creation, and for me, that's starting to go in to the workflow automation piece. And I know those products I mentioned also have those elements as well. So, and again, how powerful can that be if we can start implementing greater automation around projects and projects controls, and we've been doing that for a little while, send this risk to this person, they
Yep.
comment and it comes back, and then there's so it's not necessarily anything new, but the underlying technology is new, and the speed and the fact that you can do this far quicker is in its own right. So for me, you got that side on the efficiency side. The other side is all about predictive analytics for me. So your machine learning type products and dare I say, your more traditional PPM tools. And we all know that there is a plethora of PPM tools on the marketplace. Last time I looked, about 150. And actually, there's a gold rush for every single one of those to be AI based as well, and I think, as an observer of that industry, it's really interesting because that technology hasn't necessarily been built in the first place to be on a front foot around prediction, and then you've got this whole point about, well, actually it's based around the data as well. So that as a result of that, you've got a few specialist companies that have come from, we're building a prediction tool in the first place. Actually, again, I think this is kind of interesting because what do you want to do? Dump all of your legacy systems that are completely embedded within your organization? I think far more powerful is to work out how you can start using products such as business intelligence to drag the data out of them. And for me, then that leads to a subsequent question, which is, do I stand up an internal data science team and and obviously take the benefit of that, but similarly, the OpEx implications of that as well, and the narrowness of that use case? Or do you think about other companies such as ours, where you get the benefit of us doing it with multiple companies and are somewhere between a product and a data type organization, as it were? So really interesting dynamics going on in the marketplace at this moment in time, as it were, David.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for that summary. So we at AIPMO are very excited about AI. Two of our principles, core to our standards, which are best in class, are transparency and alignment. So for instance, and feel free to comment on this, Gemini, ChatGPT, those tools, LLMs really help consolidate data and help us with a lot of research to get this information to our stakeholders in a smart, quick fashion. One of the new terms I just heard this week is SLMs versus LLMs. Any thoughts on that in terms of like where that's headed in your mind, Lloyd?
No, you're going to have to educate me on it, David, to
Small
be
language
honest.
models versus large language models is a new hot topic. Yeah. So it's something recently popping up.
I
I
mean,
just wanted to run by. Yeah.
yeah, what I would say about large language models, and it's interesting that you put it linked to transparency. In my world, we talk about explainability quite a lot as well, and I think this is one of the drawbacks of large language models, that you're not quite sure how that provision of the response has been created. And yes, we can mitigate it. We can say, that quote came from that document or that book, etc. But it doesn't actually tell you about the sentiment, which is in that prompt, which was the key piece of language that you use to bring that back in. So and I know we're going to talk about limitations in a second, but for me, this whole piece is a slight juxtapose, when we talk about transparency, as it were.
Therein lies some of the challenges with LLMs, knowing how exactly they came to their data points and how they gave the information back, fact-based. So great point. Next topic I'd like to run by you is the limitations of AI. So us as
Yeah.
humans, we always look at this creativity, thought leadership element, and the personality portion and relationship building within, PMOs and project management. So what are your thoughts around AI capabilities and
Yeah.
limitations there?
I mean, it's a great topic, and obviously we just started talking about that in one sense, and but if you go back one step, how many people have said garbage in, garbage out, and all of that sort of stuff. And we've heard these nightmare stories of company X has suddenly loaded their latest product information. So undoubtedly, from a more sort of technical security point of view, there are limitations going on here. I think, for me, it's getting very hard to say, well, actually, the potential upside doesn't outweigh the risk, and also how you can mitigate that risk as well. And the reason I talk about that is that the mitigations, in my mind, can come in a couple of forms. They can come in more technical form, so I don't know, on-prem solutions or private cloud solutions, but they can also come on the human side as well. The term that I understand is human in the loop. And in that mind, it's about validating, the responses from a Gen AI point of view that you're getting, as it were, and whether that is, I don't know, dip checking the responses, or making sure that there's a new process in place, that before a document goes out the door, as it were, it has got assurance associated with it as well. So we definitely have to, at this moment in time, go back to your point about transparency and explainability, but also we need to validate and assure what conclusions we're making. I'm sure, these days we're all getting quite used to these products, and checking before it goes out. Again, with more time allowing, I think there's an interesting angle there about how lazy we may be as humans, cut and paste the answer rather than read it, so a whole different dichotomy there, if you like. what I would also say is some of those risks I talked about, technology companies are obviously not ignoring that. So security is nothing new. This is just sort of security on steroids, if you like. So the extra technical hindrances going on. So I was doing some security clearance the other day, and I had questions like how often do you retrain your model? This type of stuff as well. And again, the explainability piece is related to that for me. I think in my world, on the more machine learning side, it is about explainability as well, so to mitigate that point, this prediction is based on these particular projects, no longer is it a black box of AI, and it's also based on these particular features, and these features are the ones that really lead to delay. But I appreciate that the question really was about the relationship between AI and the human, and I'm slightly bored of hearing people say, oh, we won't be replaced by AI, we'll be replaced by somebody with AI. Now, I can tell you guys, we need to wake up and smell the roses. That is not a true statement. There are roles that are getting replaced, unfortunately. Generally speaking, the admin layer, I can tell you that some of our clients come in, and part of the benefits of engaging us is to save headcount, or it may be actually an individual person can do more, as it were. So maybe you're saving an arm of a person, or maybe a leg of a person, as it were. You start bringing that up to portfolio level, maybe you can start saving a whole person. So it's a fallacy to say that particular statement. In short term, I get it, but we need to plan for the future, as it were, and working out how you move forward and how you adopt, as it were. And just coming back to the question, 1 second, is I don't know about you, but I'm already using AI to help with my creativity. When I write an email, I look for it, or a report, I look for it, take this persona, or make this argument, challenge that argument. What would I do in that scenario? And that includes things like stakeholder management. That includes my communication strategy and all of that sort of stuff. So I think that line between, creativity and technical is increasingly becoming blurred. That's not to say I don't think there's a role for humans, certainly in the short term, but I think it's interesting times ahead.
Yeah, I think you hit a lot of good points, especially, number one is on the human element. Don't rely too much on the tools and keep engaged, to make sure you have a voice in some of these things. The second thing on the use of the AI tools related to some of these LLMs is interesting, because when I think about how I use it, Lloyd, it's almost like for validation and reinforcement that I've looked at all options, but not actually writing the material itself, right? So some of these things I
Yeah.
think about, you don't want to get away from the creativity and just be on autopilot. So like when you're writing white papers, it's really a good tool to help you with references. Like say you came up with some theories and some facts and foundations, and then you go to use some of these tools. Okay, find me publications and references that support my materials. Really powerful there. But sitting back and just letting
Yeah.
it write everything for you, I don't think that's a good approach. What do you think?
I totally agree. I think
Yeah.
assurance is a really good tone to have in this conversation. What I would say though, David, and we had a long conversation. I was at a university yesterday about this whole subject, and what is very clear is that people are realizing that what we used to call soft skills or power skills are as important going forward. Once you've got that level of technical capability, if you like, theoretically, when we're all empowered, as it were, what's it going to come down to? It's going to come down to how we interact as individuals, my influencing skills, my emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
as it were. And I think some of that isn't yet as taught or embraced as well as it should be. So if we can start putting, what I would umbrella under change management at the fore, I think that will also help with the success of projects. Often change management, a bit like training, is an afterthought. Well, actually, I think it's going to become more and more important in this world going forward. So I know we're not necessarily answering, what do you do as an individual, but I'd certainly be thinking, I'm not just upskilling myself around technology, I'm upskilling myself around my human skills as well.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is when it comes to the change management paradigm, the methodology and frameworks, consider using AI tools with communication options to help embrace and get people to buy into projects and programs. Okay, no,
Yeah,
that's fair. Yep,
exactly.
yep.
Exactly.
Any questions or comments so far, Omar, you want to add in?
Yeah, it's very interesting management concept into. Sorry, I got disconnected. I was saying that it's very interesting to bring the change management discussion and processes and align it with what AI is doing right now from our experiences. And as Lloyd said, change management was kept as a last thought or even never thought of prior to any execution. Moving forward, AI will be changing this and aligning change with the execution. It's very interesting topic to bring out, Lloyd. Thank you for that.
Yep. All right, great.
It's really interesting, Omar, because actually what we found with our clients is once a client accepts to take a sort of AI view, embrace AI or embrace data as part of their delivery, actually by default you're starting to use that burning platform to drag project management maturity forward. So I don't know, as a quick example, if you haven't got resource data, I can't predict around resources. Do we accept that resource management is a key part of project success? Yes, we do. Therefore, what's the plan to bring forward resource management? So for me, it's a really interesting stance, and why you're sort of seeing that, this is a transformation journey, this AI journey around projects as well. So just just an interesting ditty. And I say that on the basis that higher project management maturity leads to higher project capability and higher project success as well.
True.
Thank you both for that.
Yep, absolutely. But having the right level of maturity, right? Not too much where you have too much of an administrative burden also. What do you think on that, Lloyd?
So, for me, maturity is a complex statement, and it's multi dimensions of it as well, David. Data maturity, system maturity, individual maturity, team maturity, portfolio maturity. So unpacking that and working out what that is, I think, is a really interesting thing. What I would say though, for me, it goes to that classic, well, where am I here today? Where do I want to get to? And I think generally speaking, people want to get to a moment where there's greater project success. So if maturity can help with that, that's great. And if AI can help with maturity, that's great as well. So
Excellent. So one of the last agenda items that we want to go with you, Lloyd, is what do you think the future vision of AI is over the next 2 to 5 years, where it's headed from all the angles you've seen globally?
yeah, it's a really interesting question for me. And I kind of like, not trying to get ahead of ourselves and going beyond 5 years, because who knows where the world's going to be in 5 years, or at least, at the cutting edge of things, because we know actually enterprise doesn't necessarily move that rapidly, but it's starting to move. I see it in three key areas, if you like. I think first of all, for me, is what we're seeing is the opportunity to take data out of silos, and that's something we've been talking about for a long time. And you know, if we take data out of silos, I think we also take organizations out of silos as well. What do I mean by that? So actually the likes of AI agents, and we haven't mentioned agentic AI, you know, where you can start linking data from different domains together in either an autonomous or semi-autonomous way. You can start obviously linking strategy, execution, and outcome together. And for me, that's really exciting. So I see one dimension about being a more intelligent operating model, you know, whether that's making strategic decisions or making execution decisions with the outcome more in mind, as it were, which is a great thing. You know, how often have we talked about low maturity around benefits, you know, so that's great, you know, for me. So that's the first bit. The second bit in that prediction world, we're already starting to see it, that you know, we're not just talking about predicting the outcome. And you know, let's face it, I can give you the greatest prediction in the world, but you can still ignore it. And I think the reason why you might ignore it is because it's like me bringing up another problem to you. You know, who wants to hear that this huge project is going to be double the budget and double the time? You know, politically head in the sand. What I need to do is new solutions at the same time. Yeah. So how can I bring that project back on track? What actions can I do? Now we call that prescriptive, if you like. So you know, solutions as well. Beyond prescriptive, it is actually prognostic as well, where, you know, for me, one of the biggest potentials here is applying AI at projects not yet started. We all know that it's very hard to bring a live project back on track. There's contracts, there's people, you know, except there's technology that's built, or, you know, spades in the ground or whatever. If you can get the project set up for success in the first place, wouldn't that be a powerful thing, you know? And no doubt there's still going to be twists and turns. The third thing in my themes, if you like, is we've touched on it already, which is this human AI interaction. I think, you know, this whole point around creativity, where it stops and starts, will increasingly become blurred. You know, in a way, even in my examples there, you know, I'm sort of saying, I'm bringing you, you know, the risk mitigation. I'm bringing you the options of what you could do. I think that will increasingly get sophisticated as well. You know, a what if scenario. What if I took that course of action as well? So I think you'll see that blurring will happen. And I guess those are the three key areas. If I take a step back, I also think there's something else starting to be visible, and again, something that we've been talking about for a long time. And I think that's the convergence of technology. So you know, in the short term, we've got things like blockchain or IoT devices, and maybe they all come under this umbrella of digital PMO. And certainly, you know, in construction, we're seeing, you know, digital twins with the, you know, the BIM modeling. I think that will start becoming more and more pervasive across all types of projects, and you know, that convergence. I haven't mentioned robotics. Maybe if you said in year 6, I'd be talking about it a little bit more, but I definitely think those technologies would be coming together over the next year. And AI is almost, it's almost the underpinning technology in those, isn't it? You know, so it is the glue that starts bringing all of that together, as it were.
Yeah, it enhances the capabilities of anything, but to your point, you have to have a good solid foundation without it. You know, it's funny you mentioned the whole thing about starting off a project right, and if it gets off the rails, it's harder. What I would add is something you mentioned earlier, that if AI has really good capabilities in the risk management framework and helping with those areas, you could develop some good turnaround strategies. It could really help and give creativity based upon looking at data points. Yeah. What your best options are, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100.
All right, great. So just to recap, we covered a lot of ground with Lloyd and Omar. We covered the positive benefits of AI, some of the tools out there in the market you can utilize, some of the approaches, how it ties back to AIPMO's methodology on transparency and governance. And then we did a recap of some of the limitations and the future vision of AI. So with that said, that concludes our session. Any final thoughts, Lloyd or Omar?
As you can imagine, I've got a final thought. Do you want to go first, Omar?
I think that we are living in very interesting times where we're seeing technology and AI finally gets in a very meaningful way into the way we do project management and how we manage PMOs. I would like to highlight one thing that you mentioned is that let's be very smart about what AI tools that we're bringing into our PMOs based on our needs, not based on our, I want to have all the tools and bells, and scale AI to our actual needs and then start building up PMO's maturity as we go.
Omar, you've stolen my thunder, sir. That's exactly what I was about to say. I mean, for me, I think that it could look like a maze out there as well. You know, which way do we go? And actually building on your point, I think first of all, there's a bit of a burning platform that you can't be left behind as well. You know, because if you're not doing something, no doubt your competitor is. But trying to work out how to move forward, and especially, you know, go back to my little smile earlier about the 172 different use cases, you know, which ones are the important ones to look at? Where is the problem? What problem are you trying to solve? What opportunity are you trying to release? And if you can balance that out against not only your current environment, so, you know, back to my example earlier about I haven't got resource data, I can't do anything, as it were, you start bringing them together in what I like to call an adoption strategy, which is a great way to start. And I think that adoption strategy, you know, it is a transformation journey. It has to be a phased journey based around what you want to achieve versus what you can do, but also in parallel, assuming, you know, that the finances are there, you should be preparing for the next wave as well. You know, so back to my example around resources, if you haven't got the resource data, we'll start working out what is your resource process and your resource system, and you know, what are the data points you want to manage, etc. So I think this whole point around adoption and adoption strategy, I think, you know, for me, this is where we need to get to, and you know, you can underpin that with experimentation in some areas and all of that great stuff as well, but you know, sitting out and working out your strategy is the point that I would leave people with. So you know, you know, it's something for me that AI can drive great success, but in a careful, configured manner, as it were. So
Excellent.
Well
Thank you both for your time.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Lloyd.
thank you, David. Thank you, Omar.